Welcome to the No Picks After Dark podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Dante. Today, we have a very special guest. I've been trying to get this person on the show for quite a while. This guy's pretty busy, so I know his time is precious. So before we get into everything, I want to make sure everybody knows this is a very important guest. I really appreciate him coming on again. Without further ado, hello to Baltimore City Council President Brandon Scott. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great, brother. How are you today?
It's blessed, man. It's a blessing to be here and just to have time, 30 minutes with you, just to talk and get people to know who you are on the No Picks After Dark podcast. And
Yes, sir. I look forward to it. And I hope your family's healthy and safe.
I appreciate that. Thank you, as well as for you. So, Council President, I have an audience that spans from Baltimore to Philadelphia to California, all over. I want people to get to know who you are, and this is what this is about: getting to know who you are as council president. Are you from Baltimore? Things of that nature. What is your job title? At Baltimore City. What do you do every day in day out? Give her a quick background before we get into the meat of the questions.
Well, to your first question, yes, I'm Baltimore born, Baltimore bred. When I die, I'll be a Baltimore dead. I've always lived in Baltimore, born and raised here, grew up in Park Heights. The only time I spent outside of the city was when I was away at college and living in St. Mary's County, which is that not that far from Baltimore. But always grew up here, grew up in Park Heights, which is really what shaped me in my wanting to serve. When you grow up in a neighborhood where you see your first shooting before your 10th birthday, when you go to school to no heat and air, when you lose friends, see people struggle with addiction and alcoholism, and when you live in a neighborhood with the world that the world descends on for Preakness Saturday, and then the rest of the year you're forgotten. It changes you and make a decision on whether you're going to accept that how life has to be, or you can do something to do change it.
Oh wow, thank you so much for giving that background. So, growing up in Baltimore, like, what are some of your greatest memories growing up? I mean, I'm originally from Baltimore, also, and my greatest memory is going to 33rd Street and hanging out and seeing the Orioles game, getting peanuts. That used to be the spot, 33rd Street. Everybody would go there,
Yeah,
Greenmont. That was the spot. So, what about you, Council President?
I got a lot of great memories and growing up in Baltimore, man. A lot of them are either on at Memorial Stadium, not just with the Orioles, but actually my family, we had season tickets to the CFL team, the Stallions, and then saw the Ravens play there when they first came here. Of course, growing up here in Baltimore and being a athlete myself, running track at Mervo, us being able to win city and regional championships, being a junior Olympian, those are great memories for me. Even regular neighborhood moments, right? I remember I was telling this story to someone the other day. We were visiting my neighborhood with a TV station who wanted to see actually where I grew up. And behind my house, there was this church lot that we used basically as our stadium where we would play basketball, football, and baseball there, depending on what season it was, what sport was in season. And it had a fence. And I just telling a story about hitting my first home run over that fence. It was about probably like 175, maybe 200 feet away when I was like the biggest feeling. I felt like Brady Anderson at the time because I was the leadoff hitter on the little neighborhood team. Those are some great memories. And then a lot of my memories are with my family too, man. Going out to Drew Hill Park. Remember when they used to have the hot air balloon race that started in Drew Hill Park, doing those kind of things, going on field trips to the aquarium, man, getting snowballs, crabs, of course, crabs and more crabs, crab cakes from Coco's. Of course, there's no other place to get them. Getting crabs from Captain James because there's no other place to get crabs, in my opinion. But I think that those are some of my Baltimore memories, man. Just hanging out with my friends, going to the Paradox, going to Mondawmin Secure. I'm a true Baltimore boy, man. So I could go on and on and on about my memories as a young man growing up here.
I like that. I like that. You brought me back. Paradox under where the old memorial, where Camden Yards is now, down that way.
Yeah, with Cannon Yards. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're not if you didn't go to Paradox on a Friday night as a young person from Baltimore, we question if you grew up in the city or you grew up in the county. That's what I always like to say.
See, I remember going out Baltimore and playing basketball around 12, 1 o'clock up by Drew Hill Park. What's the park? Everybody, Clover, Cloverdale, Cloverdale.
Cloverdale. Oh,
Yeah,
Cloverdale. Woo!
yeah.
Yeah, the hooping there in Drew Hill Park, man. I remember when I was in college, I used to my one of my cousins. He used to be one of the people that organized like the park True Hill Park basketball game. We worked together for my family's business, and of course, I was in like tip top shape because I was still running. So I would go and we were like, yeah, y'all got next, and I would go and run a lap around the lake and then come and play. They'd be like, this guy is insane. But yeah, man, it's like Afram, of course. Everybody knows Afram, Stone Soul Picnic. That's like true Baltimore stuff that you can never forget.
Yeah, I would have family from coming from all over just for Afram. They
That's
loved
right.
Afram. That was the spot. So you bring back a lot of my good childhood memories. So in high school, were you ever in like model UN nations? Were you ever on debate teams? Like how, like introduction to politics. We're slowly creeping into that. Was that
Well,
your?
yeah, I will tell you this. This is funny. If they hear it, they'll appreciate this. Two of my teachers at Mervo really wanted me to be in debate. But let me be very clear. Coach Hendricks and Coach Neal were having none of that. I was allowed to do two extra things outside of track. One was they allowed me to be the student member on the school improvement team, and two, I was forced into the College Bound Foundation program. Everything else was school and track. They kept us very focused, even though I did get to debate in class sometime, and they wanted me to be on the debate team as a choice. But I would say that my service really started as in the community as a young kid, right? My mom tells like these stories about how I would come home and three different times when I was at Dr. King or Malcolm X, I actually gave my coat to one of my classmates because they didn't have a
Mhm.
coat or their family couldn't buy, afford to buy them a coat. Or when you think about like one time, this is a story. This giant, when Giant was on Righteoustown Road before it was at the Plaza, I ended up working there later in my life. But my dad and I came outside the store, and there was this young lady who had a baby and clearly was struggling. She wanted to buy milk from the baby, and we went home. I made my dad get my piggy bank, and we took her back and used that to buy the milk. And then really just always being in the neighborhood, trying to clean up, that's what pushed me into service. And I think that it really started to grow in me. And then, I always knew because I would pester my parents and everyone around me about why things were the way they were in my neighborhood. And my mom just told me one day, if you want to change it, you're going to do it yourself. No one's going to do it for you. No one's coming to save you.
Nice. That's nice. That's nice. Now you went to college, St. Mary's. Okay.
Go
You
Seahawks.
and what did you study? What was your major when you got there? Did you know? And you're running track there. So
No,
no track.
no track, no
Okay.
track. St.
Okay.
Mary's didn't have a track team, and I'm gonna be very clear. I always tell this because it's so interesting. If I run track in college, I'm probably not talking to you today because we know like how sports and athletes are at colleges where coaches pretty much dictate us, unfortunately, a lot of times what that young people can study and all of those kind of things.
Mhm.
At St. Mary's, it was strictly academics for me, which ended up being the best thing for me. Political science is what I studied at the Center for the Study of Democracy at St. Mary's, which was at the time Maryland's Public Honors College. Is now the National Public Honors College, and they had that bestowed upon us a few years ago. But this also where like my service and direct service in like elected office where that took off. Right, I was
Mm.
elected to the board of the Black Student Union. Then as the president, I was on the Student Government Programs Board. One of the people like this helping to work on what kind of programming will be there for students. I served on these multicultural advisory commissions and these other things that the president at St. Mary's had me involved on, and really that's where you saw me start to serve in a way where we talked about impacting policy at the school, impacting things that were happening on a social level, organizing people. We started a mentoring program with a high school in St. Mary's County named Great Mills High School that now everyone knows because we had a school shooting there a few years ago. That's what really in St. Mary's is me ending up at St. Mary's was the best decision for me that I didn't just make on my own. I walked into my homeroom classroom at Merville one day, and and a counselor, college-bound counselor, coach. I think my dad was there, and this young lady and young man from St. Mary's who was like, "Yeah, this is where we think you should go to school." And then I looked up on the school, never visited. As much as I believed that St. Mary's blue and gold, I never visited until August 31st, 2002. My first day there was literally my first day there, and it was the greatest thing for me, man, because my family at St. Mary's, just like my Merville family, we are family, and we are small, but we are mighty. You will not go anywhere in Baltimore, any function, and there will not be more than one of us in a room. But it's also uh, a place where I push myself too. That's where I really learned to think critically, where I really learned a lot about policy and how to think about policy and debate policy, where my writing skills took off. It's also where I used most of my DJing skills that I retired after I left St. Mary's. So uh, it was a great, great place, man. I built a lot of great relationships, a great foundation to allow me to serve my city.
So you leave St. Mary's. What was your first job when you got out of college? What's your first job?
Well, after probably going on 100 and something interviews and applying for 300 jobs, I I'll tell you a quick funny story. So I applied for the Baltimore City schools teaching residency. I
Oh,
didn't get it. I applied to be a to work in the health department's Operation Safe Kids. They work with at-risk young people in Baltimore City. Didn't get it. They
mm,
actually hired somebody that I used to tutor, which was funny. Didn't get it. But everything happens for a reason. I end up getting a interview at Big Brothers Big Sisters of Central Maryland, and just happened to my first who will be my first boss, Cindy Wyatt, impressed her in an interview. And she looks at me at the end and says, "You went to St. Mary's College?" I'm like, "Yes." She's like, "The person that you're trying to replace went to St. Mary's College." And that's why they gave me the job. And I started there running mentoring programs for schools in the city, at Mervo and Guilford Elementary, also some in Baltimore County, Howard County, Harford County, and Arundel. And that's what was my. And at the same time, I also then started doing some work at Coppin State, doing some work with some folks there. Give me 1 second. Doing some work with some folks there around black male engagement as well.
wow. So that's you've done a lot. You've done a lot. Now let's transition here. How do we get in politics? Why do you want to be in a public? I always ask people this. Why do you want to be in the public eye? Why do you want to be scrutinized? I always question that because I mean it's a public servant job, but your whole life is open book at this point.
Yeah, I guess for me that didn't bother me, right? When because I think that's like the way I was brought up, to know that I wasn't special and that you just did your job no matter what. You treated everyone the same, but that you always had to carry yourself with dignity and respect and treat everyone with dignity and respect. And then also, when you run track at Merville, one of the most popular sports teams in the city and the state and the country at that time, we always had an eye on us. And coach would always say, like, you guys got to carry yourselves. You're representing that M. You're not
Mm,
just representing yourself. So when you grow up that way, and that St. Mary's, being in student leadership, where one of my friends, my best friend from St. Mary's, his name is Brandon too. We just mirror each other. He grew up in D.C. I grew up in Baltimore. We were having a discussion while there was this big incident around this racial incident on campus one year, and
mm.
our dean at the time of student affairs, vice president for student affairs, Dean Freeman, never left his house. He called us at like 11 p.m. That night and said, "When I get to work tomorrow morning, I want y'all in my office and I want y'all to have it fixed." So when you have that kind of responsibility at a young age, it just grows you. You accept that being a part of life. I actually came to City Hall first after applying for the vacancy in the 6th district, because I was still living in Park Heights at the time, and then didn't get it. They gave it to the council vice president, who, by the way, was the person that just called me and interrupted the Zoom, but it's okay. And I love her to death. and then became a staffer working first in the office of the council president for then council president Rawlins Blake. And those 4 years of service there in the mayor's office of neighborhoods and criminal justice and in rec and parks of experiences that you can never replace before deciding to run on my own in 2011.
Wow. Wow. I mean, again, folks, you're listening to this trailblazer right here, going through, telling you each step of the way of how it really goes down, and it's just amazing to hear all this and understand the process, how it's not doesn't happen overnight. So, what trials and tribulations did you run into when you first ran for office and you won? Like, what so first you first lost or not lost? You did get picked, correct? And then when you ran the next time, what things did you learn from yourself, like trials that you're like, wow, I won't do this time, things of that nature.
Well, it was funny because my first election, let me be very clear, uh, um, probably, even though is aside from this past election is the one that I had to work the hardest. Uh, my first election was one of the easiest because it was a unique situation because I was running one out of six people. The sitting council person came to me and said, basically, he didn't want to run against me. He was going to support me. He was ready to retire.
Mm,
And the community in the area at that point, because of me working as a neighborhood liaison, living in that community, being active, I was on the board of my community association, Frankfurt, which actually was the largest. It's the largest neighborhood in my old district, right? They knew who I was versus these other folks that were running that they had no clue.
mm,
So the interesting thing was that I didn't hear when I was 27 years old and running that I was too young, right? Or I didn't hear that. I had to hear that at 36, which is ironic. After at that point at 36, with me then having 13 years of experience for someone to say that, but the first time I didn't see that. But there are always going to be obstacles, right? And when you think about being on a council where at that time there was only two of us under age of 40 at the me and then Councilman Mosby, Delegate Mosby. Now working with folks who, when you're talking about like dealing with data and technology, who it's not a bad thing, but that's not their strong point because they were used to a different way, right? So that was the frustrating part, not being able to push as hard and fast as possible. But that's also what inspired me to go out and try to bring in the troops. And that's why, working to bring on working for other people. That's what I spent my time doing in 2016, was helping to get the Shannon Sneeds, the Chris Burnett's, the John Bullocks of the world elected so that we can have a new era of the city council.
it's interesting you say that. I moved back to Baltimore. I went to Syracuse for college, and I lived in Jersey for a little bit.
Nobody's perfect, brother.
Can't be orange. Can't be orange. It's all right though. But I moved back in '05, and I remember I never knew who was the city council and person in my district. I never saw a city council person in my district. I lived off of North Gate and Cold Spring up that way,
Mm,
Hillen, and never saw us. And you know what I'm talking about. Never
mm,
saw him. And the first person I ever saw that came and knocked on my door was Councilman Ryan Dorsey.
mhm.
Can you imagine that? That's crazy. Never,
It's not,
never,
but
never
that's not
came to
the
my
first
door.
time. That's not the first time I hear that, man. When I was knocking on doors the first time, right? It's like it first ever that ever came to my door, ever.
Right.
And we're talking about folks who live in Northeast Baltimore who, they've been, some of my neighbors been in the house since it was built,
Mm,
right? But it goes the same thing for service. When I ran for reelection in 2016, we ran like Facebook commercials in just my district, where we had folks testifying like, oh, I've been living in my house since 1950 or whatever, and my street never got plowed until Brandon became my council person. Something that simple for folks, right? Like, there was a young lady who had literally a forest growing behind her house that they had been trying to deal with for years and years and years. But that just shows you how you can push and usher in a new level of accountability and responsibility by just doing what you're supposed to do and communicating with people.
And again, I like hearing those type of stories. I know my audience will love hearing this type of information from you. Now, are you a natural born leader? And did you have leaders? Did you have to learn that? Was there somebody you looked up to have that leadership quality?
Well, if you ask my family, I've always been, as they would say, bossy and organizing people, right? Sometimes as a young man, sometimes for good, sometimes for bad. My brothers and I got into a lot of trouble. You know, I was known to sometimes be a little mischievous, or in some cases, lead my classes in high school and other things, and what was known as revolts. That ultimately, I won't go into the story, but uh, me and one of my teachers at Mervo, we had it out for over a year period because I thought that, she was treating me and my classmates unfairly, and particularly me for some reason. And we ended up, the school system ended up agreeing because that young lady didn't come back and didn't come back to be a teacher at all. And
Hmm.
we found out through some friends from Merville that left before us that it wasn't the first time. We were just the first ones to say no. But anyway, I think that becomes a lot from my family because my family have always seen that, right? It's the history of my family, my grandparents, my dad's parents from down on our farm in North Carolina. They were always galvanizing the community. My grandmother, my grandfather, my mom's parents here, they were always organizing people. Like both my parents, actually, they I always talk about, they coached my little brothers on separate little league teams just so that there more kids in the neighborhood could play on a team because they needed to have two. It's just a part, and that's really who I look up to, is my family, because that's what they do, right? My parents, my grandparents, my aunts, my uncles, making sure that everybody, especially those who have less than us, and for me now, I think about that in a different way because I'm thinking about, we didn't have much when we were growing up, but from their mindset, what we had then was so much more than what they grew up in the rural poverty in the South, right? So I think that to me, and them having the vision, that's what I look up, and that's what inspires me to be better every day, to make sure that I'm taking the next step in my generation.
Hey, you just answered my next question. Actually, who was a big influence? And it sounds like you answered that right away with a big influence on your life. Sounds like the whole family, the parents, everybody. That's a beautiful thing. It's all about family. I like family. I like hearing about family. That's one of the things about the podcast. It's all about positive Baltimore stories.
That's
And
right.
successful. I won. I don't know if you know. I just won Baltimore Magazine Best Podcast
Congratulations.
and Baltimore Sun. So
Congratulations.
thank
Congratulations,
you. I
brother.
appreciate it. And like a lot of everybody, just, it's one of those things where everybody, people have hit me back. You talk about positive Baltimore stories that we need to hear, and we
That's
love
right.
hearing it because every time they turn on the alphabet news, it's something negative every day, and they want to hear something positive. And and I love doing it. And Northeast Baltimore has embraced me, so I love hearing what you're talking about family and how they've influenced you. I like that a lot. So we're in uncharted waters right now in Baltimore City. What are you hearing from people in Baltimore about COVID-19? Are we ever going to get back to the norm? Uh, you know, I'm at the point right now, it's everybody's stir crazy. We're getting to the point where what are you hearing?
Well, yeah, everything, man. One, unfortunately, I'm hearing from different people of different things, right? Some people are taking it very seriously, are stir crazy, worried about their jobs, worried about their family, worried about their kids and learning. You have some folks who are still being reckless, and if anybody hear me as being reckless, not wearing a mask, going out, not practicing social distancing, and is complaining about nothing being open or getting back to normal, you are the reason why it's not going to get back to normal, because this is real. It is still killing people in Baltimore. And as we know, our numbers, younger people are leading it when you add up the ages between 20 and 40. We have to understand that. But also, a lot of people are concerned, right, with the services impact, and people are waiting on a vaccine. But overall, people are handling a lot better than we were at first. We've seen some progress. Our numbers are looking a lot better. We are also be very clear. We are never going back to the way that we were before. That's simply not happening. First of all, normal wasn't good enough for all of us. That's the truth. We have to understand that these inequities that COVID has it's highlighted were there before. We have to work on them in a much more deeper way, but also just from a health standpoint, right? Not going back, right? Expect that you're probably going to wear masks like for the rest of your life. That's not going to be something that's going to go away, that there's going to be some virtual component to everything you do. We have to take it very seriously as we push through it, especially now with flu season coming up. Get a flu shot too, because you don't want to be somewhere not knowing you have the flu or COVID. Just be safe and responsible, everybody, so that we all can be healthy and alive.
And just a little add on to that. Just I mean, I know a lot of businesses are worried wintertime coming up. I mean, I'm just throwing this in here. What are your thoughts? Just what do you think the city is thinking about? Just as far as it's going to get cold, it's going to get real cold real quick, and you get nervous. I mean, any thought? What's the business community's response to you reaching out to Baltimore City, the whole council?
Yeah, that's why we've been able to push some more money out for businesses. I know I've reached out to the current mayor and trying to figure out ways like other cities to provide help to do outdoor dining through the winter. I think that that's the kind of things that we have to do and push because we need to keep our businesses open so that our neighborhoods stay vibrant and people stay employed.
Thank you, appreciate that. So I've noticed you always reach out to the youth. Always, you had something where you talked about maybe lowering the age for voting, and I thought that was fascinating. Uh, why is that so important to you? I always ask that. Why is that so? I always wondered that about you.
Well, it's so important because for one, I used to be them not too long ago. And I know how it is to live in a city where only one elected official, Elijah Cummings, ever came to my school. I ever felt like I could touch him, that he was real. Everyone else looked like they were, high on the hog. And that's why you will find many young people now that they say to me that you'll be in the store with me and they were like, you spoke at my fifth grade, eighth grade, and 12th grade graduation, right? Like, because that has always been my focus. The hardest part about COVID for me is I had been able to go to schools and hang out in schools for hours at a time. Because if you really want to say that our young people are our future, and for me, they're not just our future, they are now, you have to spend time and invest with them. It's not just money. They have to see you. They have to be able to feel you. They have to be able to pressure you. You have to be able to help them grow, because I have to be for them what nobody was for me, to
Mm.
show them that people like them from a neighborhood like theirs can do whatever they set their minds to, and to be there also to support them in many different ways. For me, I used to coach basketball before I became the council president. Was helping to run Volo City Flag Football League, which I was coaching football into, and just to be able to help directly those young men and women and impact their lives in a positive way has always been a focus for me.
Okay. So a lot of Northeast people, like myself, we wonder why did you move over to Northeast Baltimore, um, and why do you like living over here? And because we want to
Well,
hear from you because we just talked. I'm down the street from you, and I have the Hartford Road corridor, Bel Air corridor, and we always wonder like why Northeast? Give a shout out to Northeast here.
so this should be a secret to everyone. I traveled to Northeast Baltimore from Park Heights for high school, and I ran track and cross country. So I spent uh, the ages of 14 through 18 literally running around Northeast Baltimore, and that's how I fell in love with the neighborhood and had the opportunity to move here. Sheesh, over 11 years ago now, and been living here ever since, because it's a neighborhood that I love. Right, it's close to Lake Montebello. I can get to Mervo very quickly, get the Cocos as quick as I want, and it's just I fell in love with the area as a young man, and have always looked at it as a great place in the city.
All right. So tell the listeners, because I have a lot of people from outside of Baltimore, why Baltimore is a beautiful place to live, to work, and to raise your children.
So Baltimore is a beautiful place because we are a real city. You're going to get a real city with real culture. Yes, we have issues that we have to address and we will address them. But if you want to live in a place where you are not going to get a culture of another city implanted there, that you're going to get real people who that will talk to you with real neighborhoods that have history and character, where you're able to see a lot, where you can be in the heart of a city when you get to restaurants and the National Quarry and the Inner Harbor, but in the same city, you can get out to a park and see nature. You can live in a neighborhood where there's fox, or you can live in a neighborhood where you can see water, or sit there, right? I think that that's truly what makes Baltimore the best, the different stocks of housing, the fact that we are a city of neighborhoods, and every single neighborhood, really every single block, has its own story. So that's truly, I believe, what makes Baltimore such a great city.
Thank you. Thank you. So what would you tell a kid about their dreams? Like, you talked about how you started from Park Heights, and and you right now are city council president right now. What's the story you tell people when kids say, "I aspire to be like what you're doing right now"? How do you say that?
Well, the first thing I tell them is that I don't want them, when they say, I want to be just like you, I'm very quick to tell them, no, I want you to be better than me at every single thing, every single job that I've ever had, because I went through the things that I went through so that they don't have to. I want to be. I always say someone has to be the first one to rush the door,
Hmm.
because if you get in, then the next person doesn't have to rush the door. If you don't, then the hinges are a little more loose, right? I want to make it easier for them, but I always tell them this, that no one, no one but them can prevent them from being their greatest selves. When you hear all the time in Baltimore that they're limited, we're limited as young people, and young black men in particular growing up in our city, I always tell them, look at me. They told me the same thing. They told me that I couldn't be on the city council. Wrong. They told me I couldn't become the council president. Wrong. They told me I couldn't become the Democratic nominee for mayor. Wrong. You can do whatever you want, but you have to carry yourself like the ultimate thing that you want to be right now as a young man. You have to work hard every day. You have to treat everyone with dignity and respect. You have to make sure that the people around you also want to soar, because they will only be as strong or successful as the people around them as well. They have to be able to challenge and hold their friends accountable, and they have to want more for themselves than anybody else does. And I know, I have to jump in a second, but I wanted to get that out too.
Hey, no problem. I know you have to go, and again, I appreciate
Want
you.
to go? You want to go through these rapid
Yeah,
fires or something?
hey, like I said, I know you have short
Yeah, we
time.
can go. We can go through these rapid fires really quickly.
Okay, rapid fire. What inspires you every day?
When I look in the eyes of our young people in Baltimore and hear the greatness that comes from them, but also Baltimoreans, right? Being out every weekend when I have volunteers coming from all over the city to help clean up neighborhoods. That's the hope in Baltimore. The people are the hope in Baltimore, and that's what inspires
Your favorite author?
me. Oh, my favorite author. That's the easy one. Malcolm X.
Favorite musician?
Oh man, that's a tough one for me. Sheesh.
You can name a group. You can name two or three. I mean,
If I got if I got to do a group, it's real easy. Wu Tang forever. If I
okay.
have to name an individual musician, I would have to say uh, James Brown.
Okay, I'm black and I'm saying I'm proud. All right, all right. Um, best crab cake. I already know. Yeah, best
Come
crab.
on, man. It's Coco. Coco's.
Your favorite verses? What was your favorite verses of all time?
My favorite verses so far. Actually, my favorite verses was actually Premier versus RZA, because I'm a '90s hip hop head. So
Like that, like that. Flats or drums?
neither. I don't eat meat.
Okay, all right. Best brunch in Baltimore.
I don't brunch either.
Hey, I respect it. I respect it. Favorite city to visit?
Other than Baltimore, Toronto,
Favorite local beer?
I don't drink.
Favorite brewery?
Uh,
If you take somebody out
favorite
of town.
brewery, a favorite brewery or place to hang out like that would be either Monument or Old Line.
Okay. What's the best advice you've ever received?
Be yourself at all times, no matter the cost.
Favorite place to take a visitor from out of town?
Favorite place? Oh, well, that's Coco's, man. You gotta give them the best crab cake if they come to Baltimore.
And where can people find you on social media?
Council Press, PRESBMS on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Hey, you're off the hot seat, Council President Brand Sky. I appreciate you taking time out of your day, and good luck as the Democratic nominee for Baltimore City mayor. We really appreciate
Thank
you.
you. Thank
All the
you,
very
brother.
soon.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, sir.